Hello and welcome to our next video cast on the Unit 7 on cognition and memory. We're looking today at retrieval, which is the basis of your memory really, and why we even have a memory. So if you think about it, it's just like a golden retriever, right? You toss the ball and they go and fetch it. They retrieve the ball. So retrieval is simply that. We're retrieving memories. So this involves accessing information from the long-term memory so that it can be used or examined in your short-term memory. We have things called retrieval queues that help us gain access to these memories. Retrieval queues are really an organizational system. It's like files on the hard drive of your computer. You've got files and then subfiles and subfiles of your subfiles in order to organize your information. The more retrieval queues you have, the better, because you'll be able to access this information in a variety of scenarios from a variety of questions. If you have just one retrieval queue for the event, then you're less likely to be able to remember it because you have to put yourself in the exact same context of when you remembered it in order to recall it once again, and that's very difficult to do. So, methods of measuring your retrieval. Now, we teachers, we use these a lot, obviously, every single day. You'll probably be able to find these in each one of your classes. Recall is when you just have to remember the information. So when a teacher asks a question just out in the blue, in the middle of class from, say, I don't know, stuff you learned last year, that's called recall. Or when I give you an essay test, like a free response question, right? That's recall. You've got to give all the info there. Recognition is like a multiple choice test. You just got to identify the retrieval cue that goes along with the information, or the matching vocabulary quizzes that I give you. That's also a recognition test. Relearning, this indicates the time saved when learning material for the second time. So this is why we often review right before a test. It's not only to help you know what information is going to be on the test and help you, jog your memory, but it's to see how much you have learned, how much you're going to need to relearn for that test. So obviously, I'm sure you can tell, recognition is far easier than recall. And also, we remember more than we can actually recall, unfortunately. We remember so much more information than we can actually recall. So it takes those retrieval cues, those things that we recognize to pull that info out. Retrieval cues, as I emphasized before, are incredibly necessary. And one way that we can cue retrieval is through priming. So right now, let's give that a test. I'm going to spell a word, and I want you to just say the word aloud in front of your computer. So, S-H-O-P. Now, what do you do when you get to a green light? Did you say stop? If you said stop, then you've been primed, because I asked you to say the word shop. And shop is close in spelling to stop. It's nowhere near go, right? So your brain automatically went to stop, because that information is somehow linked in your brain. So if you said stop, then you were primed. All right, context also serves as a retrieval cue. There's something called locus-dependent learning, which is a context clue, really. So a lot of studies have been done where they found that if you're in the same scenario that you learn the information and when you're tested on the information, you're more likely to remember it. They did this really cool study where they had kids basically go underwater and learn information and then take the test both on land and underwater. And they found the kids that took the test, learned the information underwater and took the test underwater, scored higher on it than kids who learned the information underwater and then took the test on land. Then they did the reverse for kids who learned the information on land and found the exact same results, that kids who learned the info on land and then took the test on land scored higher. So where you are matters. So what does that tell you? That tells you to sit in the same seat every single day in my classroom, and that also tells you why we have such a formal atmosphere in the classroom of desks and chairs, because you're going to do all this formal testing for the state and for your AP exam, and when you do that, you're going to be in a formal testing environment. So we want to have that locus-dependent learning occurring there. This also helps to explain déjà vu. Why, say you've been to my class today and then you go to Spanish and our classrooms look really similar. You think you've already been to Spanish, but you haven't really been there before. It's a really basic example, but you get it. Mood can also have an impact on your memory and your retrieval. And so you have state-dependent memory, which says that you recall information learned in one state, then we do so in the same state. So learn information when we're happy, we may recall it better when we're happy. Or, sober is best, right? As this example is giving you here. And then there's mood congruent memory, which is more about your happiness and stuff like that. So if you read a book while you're running on a treadmill, you may be able to recall that information from the book better when you're running on the treadmill. This is a better example for state dependent. And then mood dependent is, if you come to my classroom happy every day, then make sure you're happy at a test day because you're more likely to remember it. All right, serial position effect. People tend to recall the first items, the primacy effect, and the last items, the recency effect in the list. And everything in the middle you completely forget. And we kind of already talked about this, so I'll gloss over it. But primacy effect reflects your long-term memory, and recency reflects your short-term memory. I want you to think about that. And if you don't quite understand why primacy is connected to long-term and recency is connected to short-term, then ask me in class. Here's just a really good graphic of primacy, recency. And why that is the way that it is. So I'll just leave it up here for a second. All right, we're going to move on to forgetting. That's the end of this podcast, and I'll be back for forgetting in a second.